All right. The topic for today is debunking the confusion of dead or alive dimensions.
And I've definitely gone back and replayed it in the intervening time. My opinion has changed a little bit since I made the video. I still think that there are points where they could have expanded on things just to make the overall plot a little bit more cohesive, but it actually does function.
Yeah, but even with that said, there is context required to really understand what's going on in the very beginning. So
Which is where the
just to
majority of my confusion is, and then a little bit between like the transition between the Dead or Alive 2 storyline and then the Dead or Alive 3 storyline.
okay.
That's the parts where I found it the weakest.
Yeah, Dead or Alive 2, the opening movie for Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate was actually supposed to be was actually supposed to take place before Dead or Alive 1 and explain the events of that. The original what this was leading to, this was supposed to be a teaser for an upcoming action RPG called Dead or Alive Code Cronus, which goes into more elaborate detail about what happened before the events of Dead or Alive, everywhere from Raito and Shiden's ascension to becoming the next leader of the Mugen Tenshin, to Raito's betrayal, and the whole thing with putting Hayate into a coma.
That is actually quite interesting, and that's actually something I'd love to see them revisit in the Dead or Alive reboot if that actually happens.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they could really do a ton with a potential reboot. You know what? How about we discuss that a little bit for this podcast? Because I think that's a pretty meaty topic we could go on for a little while about.
Right. So where do
Um,
you want to start?
I'm not really too sure, but that Dead or Alive action RPG spinoff, I feel like that's a really good starting point actually for contextualizing the reboot because that would actually really set up a meaty storyline and actually make the overall storytelling more cohesive for Dead or Alive. At least I think so. What about you?
I think they could just do that straight on with the Dare Alive reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much just tell the story of how of the fallout between Shiden and Raito, what how Raito even defected to Doatech in the first place, and how they even got connected. And the other thing they could also expand upon is what was Fame Douglas's motivation for even creating the Dare Live tournament, because he and Victor Donovan had two wildly different ideas going about making the conglomerate in the first place. Victor Donovan was more focused on biotechnology and weapons, and Fame Douglas was just more focused on the whole heart of the human spirit and fighting and all that stuff.
Can you expand
I
a little bit on that? Because that's something I'm a little bit hazy on, Dead or Alive lore wise. So I would appreciate being educated a little bit.
Okay. In my opinion, I think Fame Douglas genuinely wanted Daryl genuinely was genuinely inspired by somebody, I don't know, to create by some martial artist to create a tournament. And I'm
Hmm.
speculating he was inspired. He was particularly interested in the Chinese martial arts. So I'm narrowing it down to he was inspired by Gen Fu to create the Derelict tournament because he was fascinated by all the different martial arts there and wanted to start up a tournament that way. But in order to finance a big enough tournament, he probably had to cut corners and partner with Victor Donovan to fund the whole thing.
Okay, that
But
makes sense.
that's all speculation. I'm not saying it's actual official lore. The
No,
actual official.
I wasn't taking it as official lore. You can go ahead on the official lore though, because I interrupted you. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Basically, according to the official lore, um, all we know is that Fame Douglas responsible for funding the whole thing. Victor Diven was the brains behind coming up with the funds to make it a conglomerate by cutting corners with biotechnology and weapons and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But somewhere along the way, Thane Douglas had many mistresses. One of them we know is Maria, the opera singer, who who um, which she formed a union with and begat Helena. The other one is Miyako, who was
Which
in charge
resulted
of
in,
the Japanese division of Doatech, who begat Kokoro.
yeah. And Kokoro and Helena are two of my favorite fighters, as you know, so that's pretty cool stuff to me, at least.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your kind of headcanon that Genfu possibly inspired the initialization of the tournament. Do you think that
Yeah, I strongly
um
believe that because he is considered to be a well-known legendary martial artist for his time, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one who single-handedly inspired Fame Douglas to create the Dare Live tournament.
do you think that Koei Tecmo could actually use that as a jumping off point for the supposed reboot?
In a way, but in order for that to happen, the tournaments need to happen in a wider gap of time because in the original story as it is, all four Dare Life tournaments happened within 1 year. Could you believe that shit? 1 year.
Geez, like imagine how short the injury recovery time must be, since they're pretty much wailing on each other and there are
Yeah,
explosives
and
and
there was only
stuff.
1 2 week vacation in between that whole gap. That's actually canon. So yeah, the first Dare Live Extreme Beach volleyball game, that's actual canon. It's not a, it's not meant just it may not be mentioned in the reboot, but it actually happened. They just foregone the whole thing because it wasn't
Hmm.
important enough. And there was no way they didn't have enough space to implement a volleyball mini game in there anyway.
Yeah, because fighting games take up a lot of data. They always have.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so how do you want to like structure the rest of the podcast? Because we kind of went off on a little tangent there. I think it was a worthwhile one, but
I did
yeah,
say we wanted to. I did say I wanted to break down the actual story of Dare Live Dimensions,
yeah.
and also note any differences between that and Itagaki's original story.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. For starters, we know the prologue, right? The
Yeah.
prologue starts off with Kasumi being trained under Shiden to become the next successor. So based on that alone, we know this event happened right after Hayate got into a coma. And then
Hmm.
after he finished training, he told Genra to leave the rest of the training to him. He left the rest of the training to Genra, but Genra sent Ayane to do that for him, and um, Ayane snuck by, threw a shuriken. She dodged it. Ayane disapproved of her being the next in line because she was jealous of her close relationship with Hayate. Um, and then she tells her what happened to Hayate. And I will give you credit, there is confusion there because right after she mentioned that, they just slap in the opening of Dare Live 2 Ultimate as it is. And the contradiction there is that Kasumi knew she was in a coma and she ran off.
Which is that was where I was mostly going with for the confusion, plus the awkward transition, as I mentioned, between the end of the two storyline into the three storyline. I found that a little bit abrupt.
So
That
yeah,
was
I'll
more,
give you
that
that.
was
I'll give you that one. That was even I was confused by that. I was like, why would they just slap that in there and not make any effort to edit it? Because they've done this for some other cutscenes in there. So I was like, what happened? Did they just rush that out? They just
probably, but yeah,
they'll
that
get
was that
it.
that was mostly what I was talking about in my video. I just didn't want to dedicate a whole lot of time to the fact that I found it a little bit sloppy. It was
Yeah.
more just a, you know what, I'm gonna mention this because it's relevant, but I don't really want to do a whole song and dance on this particular topic. That was, but I do appreciate that you actually did clarify it in your follow-up video.
Ah, okay. The
Yeah.
other thing is, in certain chapters of the Daryl Live saga, some characters appear earlier than they were intended to be in the original story.
Which
So,
ones?
um, okay, in chapter one, which is the Daryl Live one story, that whole thing is retconned as instead of Kasumi actually going there by herself, it's instead um Christy and Damon already knew about the Mugen tension and conveniently went down there to pick Kasumi up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming they know this because Rido has ties to Doatech, and yeah, that's pretty much why they did it. And the whole reason for their doing that was to lure Kasumi to Doatech to get her DNA to create the perfect bioweapon.
Which is one of the many Kasumi clones, because let's face it, Clone Saga for pretty much every fighting game. Because,
Yeah,
you know,
pretty much. So yeah,
because,
Christy wasn't supposed to appear until Dare Life 3. So
mm-hmm,
here they retcon it as she and Damon were working together to drag her there.
mm-hmm.
Or at the very least lure her there to avenge her brother. So they had all that information on hand. They just played her for a sucker.
Gotcha. Which, that's something that they could easily revisit in the reboot.
Yeah. And the other thing is, well, okay, technically Bastet and Yane are in Dare Live 1, but they only exist in the PlayStation 1 remake of Dare Live 1. So yeah, Dare Live 1, technically the PlayStation version of Dare Live 1 is a remake of the arcade and Saturn version.
Mm-hmm.
And it's followed up by Dare Live Plus Plus, which was an arcade exclusive, but it's basically the same thing, but no story and all that shit. In a 6-point hole system.
Okay.
Oh, and let's see. The reason Bass joined the tournament was to incur was his original intent for dragging Tina to the tournament was to actually convince her that the wrestling career is the way to go. But Tina had other ulterior motives, such as getting her name out there to pursue other career opportunities.
Which is always her main character motivation for those who don't know.
Yeah. And yeah, of course, Bass was pissed, and they would go on to this for the they would go on this whole song and dance would continue for the next 2, 3, 4, right up until Dead or Alive 5, I believe. Dead or Alive 5 was where they finally reconciled.
Yep, it
Yeah,
was.
but yeah. Oh, the other thing, well, the reason Bass was so protective of Tina was because he lost her wife premature. He lost his wife prematurely.
Is it ever covered how, or is that kind of just murky?
The circumstances behind her illness are never explained. It just happened like 6 years after Tina was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I have some knowledge on the Dead or Alive lore, but I'm not like as steeped in it as you are because I'm much newer to the games and I have like done a little bit with the characters I'm interested in, but I haven't really done it too much for the characters I don't tend to play.
Ah, okay.
So you're actually educating me a lot tonight, which I
Uh,
appreciate.
Okay. On to chapter 2, which is Their Life 2. The other character that appeared much earlier than intended was Lisa Hamilton. She wasn't supposed to appear until Their Life 4, but we get an early glimpse of her, which makes sense out of why Kasumi was suspended in the Geotech Germany lab where her base of operations was.
Hmm.
And the Kasumi Alpha clone was actually I think there were two Alpha clones. I'm not very sure. One was supposed to one was supposed to uh meet up with Genra, because as we know, Genra was in league with Doatech all along. I'm guessing there was some kind of pact beam with a Rhino made way ahead of time. So they were carefully
Probably.
scheming everything right up until and was probably trying to take over the clan themselves, because I'm sure Gen was sick of living in the shadows of Shiden and all and of the Hajimon sect, because he's from the Tenjimon set. He's from the Hajimon set. So yeah, those two sects are like two completely different factions of the Mugen
Hmm.
Tenshin clan.
It would
One focuses on the more occult arcs, and the other one is like the face of the clan.
it would be really interesting if they ever explore, even if it's not in a fighting game, just the Mugen Tenshin clan in general, like because there's so much they could do with that.
Ninja Gaiden 4 is the perfect opportunity for that. I mean, we could just easily throw in Hayate and actually give him some character development, because all this time he's been a fucking MacGuffin.
Yep.
Yeah, he's
Or
been a fucking MacGuffin all this time. He hasn't even got his own expert hold variation of the Raijin and all that shit. If Hayate can get an expert hold version that ties to an Izuna drop, he should have one for the Raijin. And they still haven't done that shit. That should have been a no brainer. But no,
that would be su
they did him dirty. They're
that
still doing him dirty.
that would be super cool and also give him more to do than just be a boy toy for Hitomi.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, yeah, Hitomi was also originally supposed to be in Dare Life 3, but in Dare Life 2 Ultimate, they also made her playable because it made sense, and that was as early as they met anyway. So yeah, it made sense, and she was also very popular at the time.
And I'd say she's still one of the more popular characters.
They were even Itagaki
Considered
even willing
making
to go
her
so far
the
as to make her the new face of the series, kind of like what the current Team Ninja was trying to do with Marie Rose and Hanukkah.
Yep. I was just about to mention that actually, so thank you.
Yeah.
Um shit, I my brain just derped out and I forgot what I was gonna say. So you can go
No, no,
on to your
no.
next.
I'll let you. I'll give you a minute to think.
It's gonna come back to me, so let's just move on, and if it comes back, we'll circle back around, okay?
Okay. Oh yeah, the way Kasumi got out of the lab in the original Dare Live 2, she got out of the lab herself and she defeated Kasumi Alpha and managed to get out by herself. But now, in the retcon version, Hayabusa saved her ass again. And it was the same with Dare Live 1. In the original Dare Live 1, Kasumi defeated Raito by herself. It wasn't this whole Tuxedo Mask shit with Hayabusa.
Which version do you prefer, out of
I
curiosity?
prefer the original version where Kasumi defeated Raito on her own.
I prefer that too.
It would make Hayabusa's presence irrelevant. But I can also see why Hayabusa would join the tournament, because he's Hayate's best friend and he feels obligated to look after Kasumi.
Hmm.
So in that way, when you put it that way, it makes sense. But it kind of takes away from Kasumi as a heroine.
And from her storyline in general,
Yeah,
because it makes her more of a passive heroine than a active one.
yeah, and it kind of makes it kind of makes Ayane stand out way better in a way. So that's the side effect.
Hmm.
Speaking of and on that subject, the way Bunkatsubo, the original Tengu, came back is entirely different. He didn't get before in the original timeline, it just suddenly happened out of nowhere because the Dare Live 2 tournament started, and that released enough negative energy for him to just be released out of fucking nowhere. But in this timeline, hot take, it makes more sense that Genro let him out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I just rolled with it, and I think if I'd experienced the original version, I would have been like, what the fuck?
Yeah, there was a lot of confusing what the fucks. Like Ayane's ending in the original Dare Live 2 made no fucking sense. She just said, I'm the Tengu of Miyama. And I was like, okay, I
Oh,
don't get
this
it.
this actually circles me back around to what I was going to ask about. So awesome. Biggest what the fuck moments in Dead or Alive. That was what I was going to ask.
Okay. Oh, the biggest what the fuck moments in the Dare Live series in general?
Yeah.
Okay, well, most of the endings of Dare Live 2 are kind of what the fuck. Like, um, how was it that Gen was okay, okay, um, Leon, they did nothing with his fucking character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they still haven't explained his relationship with Zach and how Zach really son knows Zach so well, but Zach doesn't know him well or pretends not to know him well. That is a loose end that's never going to be explained. But if they reboot it, they better do it because
What's
this is
what's
their
your
opportunity to make Leon relevant.
what's your head canon for that particular continuity issue?
My head canon was that prior to joining the Dare Life tournament, Zach was enlisted in the was enlisted in the Dotec military and
Mm-hmm.
was dishonorably discharged because of some bullshit that happened between Bayman and Leon.
Okay.
And it happened particularly in Japan because if we're to go by what Zach said in Dare Live 5 and the ending of Dare Live 4, Zach knew Kokoro for at least 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he knew Kokoro about 8 years prior, or some at least as far as the events of Dare Life 5, it will be 8 years prior. So my guess is that he was enlisted in the Doatech military, and when he was dishonorably discharged, he was left penniless, and he knew he had to hustle at the first Dare Life tournament to get some prize money.
That makes a lot of sense to me,
Yeah.
at least.
And as far as the whole self-taught Muay Thai thing, I buy it, but I think this was also a missed opportunity for their to add in the original concept for the Muay Thai character in there as like a Easter egg to give Zach to spice up Zach's backstory a bit, because
Uh,
in the prototype Dare Live 1, there was the initial concept for Zach's Muay Thai character was named I believe it was crap. Come on.
I've really put you on the spot, haven't I?
No, you didn't put me on the spot. I put myself on the spot. It was shoot, how the fuck did I forget this already? Um it was oh man. Kelly. That was the guy's name. Originally, the character's name was going to be Kelly, but Itagaki um, was kind of iffy about that. He was like, and they changed him in the last minute to Zach. So I
Why
was
was
thinking, what they
Itagaki
made them if
originally?
they made the two separate characters and somehow made a backstory on them to expand on Zach's backstory, that would have been cool. That'd be
That
cool
would have
for the
been
reboot.
that would
It'd
be
be a
really
nice
cool too.
callback to
That
Dead
was
Alive One, the
that is
prototype.
that is really cool, indeed, and definitely something that they could use. So why was Itagaki hesitant on Kelly originally?
Because he felt too generic, and the other thing is he resembled Jim Kelly from Enter the Dragon.
Okay. So yeah, Zach kind of made sense for legal reasons, I guess.
Yeah, except Jim Kelly didn't. Wait, did Jim Kelly do Muay Thai or no? He was a student of Bruce Lee's as well. I think. Yeah, I think that's the case.
Let me look real quick. I can. You said Jen Kelly?
Jim Kelly, I believe it was Jim Kelly. If I'm wrong, then that's my ass.
Uh, when I put in Jim Kelly, I get an American quarterback.
Is there below there? Does it say American athlete and martial artist? Yep,
Ah,
there's one that I got. Yeah,
yeah,
James Milton
yeah,
Kelly,
yeah. I had
1946 to 2013. Yep, that's the guy.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, Google was just being stupid. You would think, given the fact I'm into fighting games, that it would be like, you're probably looking up the martial artist. I don't actually watch football, so what the fuck, Google?
All right. Now let's bring this full circle. Okay, so um Genra revives Bunkatsubo. The whole way that Aang got his memories back. I bought that story because, well, yeah, it makes sense that
How did he get
Hayabusa
his
would bring the two together
How did he get his
instead of
memories
just
back? Because I kind of that's a detail I've forgotten. So
okay, how the way he got them back, the way Aang got his memories back was by continuing to fight in the Dare Life tournament. He crossed
okay,
paths with Hayabusa that kind of got his memories back. And then
yeah,
Aang followed Hayabusa to back to the village and met up with Kasumi. They fought each other, and then Aang completely got his memories back.
that makes sense. I definitely buy that.
Yeah.
It's just a small detail that my brain was like, how the hell did it happen
Yeah.
again?
But just as he got their memories back, Genra shows up. It's revealed that he was the one who revived Katsubo, along with help from Kasumi Alpha. And yeah, fights ensue. They win, and Kasumi had to get away now that she was in exile, and understandably so, because when you're in a ninja clan, running off is a no no.
Hmm. So we've got about 9 minutes left. We might have to restart the recording in about 10 minutes after this ends, so that's fine. But I just wanted to let you know that we might have to do this in two parts, like I said earlier.
Don't worry, I don't have much to say about Dare Life 3 because Dare Life 3 is based as far as story goes.
You mean
It's all about
basic?
Ayane. It's mainly Ayane's story, but
Okay.
the changes they made obviously are well they're all changed for the better in my opinion, because it really adds some layers of depth to Ayane's
Character
yeah, her gradual
softening.
it shows signs of Ayane's humanity because she was always trained to be a killing machine and all that,
Yep.
who just follows orders strictly, and because
Hmm.
of that she's kind of standoffish and all that. But
Yep.
when she comes to the breaking point when Hayate disapproves of her actions,
Which I
and
which I definitely remember. That was one of the scenes that stood out for me in Dimensions.
yeah, she wanted to get Kasumi executed because She ran off of the clan, but it was deeper than that. It was because she was always the one being treated nice, and she was always the bastard child.
Yep.
And yeah, she didn't take that hard discipline from Hayate well. Wanted to end herself, and her mom gave the pep talk,
Mm-hmm.
and that is by far the best change they ever made in that entire game. I would not trade it for the world, but it stay that way. Yeah, that was just a very powerful scene. And then the next scene after that, we get another retcon of a character two characters that appear earlier than they were supposed to be, Kokoro and Elliot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
What were
when trying to get away from the clan, Kasumi tried to blend in as a high school student in Kokoro's private school, but she wasn't feeling well and had to get away before Ayane found her out.
Yep, I
The other
remember
one
that.
is where Elliot didn't attend the tournament, but he was there to watch Genfu
Genfu.
uh, participate because he needed a little more prize money to cure her granddaughter. And he meets they meet Hayate and Nayane, and there's hints of a ship that they were trying to build between Ayana and Elliot, which is kind of cute. And I think the way they went about it is how do I put it, wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
A bit corny, but wholesome.
Yep, which is typical for wholesome storylines.
Yeah.
What were the big changes to Dead or Alive 4's storyline in
Four
Dimensions?
in four they hardly changed anything. It's just that they didn't go about putting in every single character interaction there. Just like with most of the minor characters, they didn't bother putting their backstories in there. Oh, in Dead or Alive 3, the way Jan Lee and Lei Fang met, it's entirely different or restructured in a different way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, let's see. What else can I remember? Oh, the change they made in Dead or Alive 4. When Zach was climbing a tower, they completely removed the part where the birds attacked him.
okay, I don't remember that scene because I never experienced the original, so
Yeah. Then in the original Dead or Alive 4 it was a lot funnier. Yeah, while he was climbing the tower, there were a bunch of birds just swarming in after him, and he somehow survived from that long climb. The other scene that they deleted for Zach was the part where he was sliding down the beams in the style similarly to how Ryu Hayabusa did in the first Ninja Gaiden. If you remember that scene.
I do, yep.
Yeah, that was supposed to be like a gag to how Hayabusa did in Dare Live 1, except he landed less gracefully. And on top of that, he had to deal with Bayman.
Mm-hmm. So we've got about 4 minutes left. Is there anything else you kind of want to say? Do you want to continue this in a separate part, or do you want to kind of
Let,
end it here?
let's continue this in a separate part.
Okay.
All right,
So I will end the call. We will come back in 10 minutes and then we'll continue.
right.
Back again with Awesmic. How are you doing, dude?
I'm doing fine for 10 minutes.
Okay. Anyways, what were we discussing before Zoom made us take a break?
We pretty much briefly went over Dare Life 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
And oh yeah, the supposed fifth chapter was every the fifth chapter is basically everything from Helena's perspective.
Which is something that I completely forgot about because it's been a while since I played the game, and I did briefly play a little bit of Dimensions to, you know, prepare for this podcast.
Yeah.
So for those who haven't played that particular portion, what can you tell us about the Helena chapters?
The Helena chapter is pretty straightforward. Her mom died. Her father died before her. Well, first her father died, but she didn't really know her father that well in the first place. But then her mother died some a short while later after that. So yeah, Bateman killed her father, Christie killed her mother, but we don't know that right away until Dead or Alive 4, where she makes the big reveal. So yeah, that much is true. Um, what we don't but what they don't expand upon is the fact that Helena started the secondary life tournament.
Hmm.
Well, she does start the tournament, but we actually know first, we actually see it firsthand. And the whole concept of the freedom survivor, that was never in the original game. So they wanted to make the first Their Life tournament seem more uniform instead of it taking place in random locations where they all have the same boxy arena with explosive danger zones.
Hmm.
So in the first Their Life game, they just simplified the whole thing to take it place in the Freedom Survivor, whereas the second Their Life tournament is more expanded upon. And
Do
in
you
a
f
way that makes sense because starting with Their Life 2, we had expanded environments and all that. So it made sense for them. It made sense for Dare Live 1 to take place in a more confined boxed area. So what better place to do it than in a giant cruise ship, um, in a boxed arena?
hmm Um, Gotcha. I am blanking on what I was going to ask next, so if you have any other points you want to bring up right now, please feel free and we can go from there
Oh
discussion-wise.
yeah, Dare Live 3. They explain way better what actually happened to Helena after the second tournament. She actually was taken in by Victor Donovan, and the circumstances of how she was held into custody by him makes a lot more sense because uh, she was a valued asset and she knew too much, so they had to keep a close eye on her.
Hmm.
And Christie, of course, masqueraded as her bodyguard for a while, but eventually she would have to kill. Eventually, Victor Donovan and Christie decided it would probably be best to kill her. So before she could, but before they could take action on that, Damon shows up, secretly has a secret meeting with Helena to act as a bodyguard, and well, actually, I don't remember. Okay, I don't remember it happening in that order. But yeah, oh, actually, yeah, that actually happened in Dare Life 3, but not in Dare Life 4.
Okay. Um, so what do you think the framework for a new Dead or Alive game should be? Do you think that they should take some of the bones from Dimensions and rework that again?
I think they should leave the first game alone. Yeah, they should leave the groundwork. They should leave almost everything in the first Dare Live game story alone. But the major changes have to come after that. Instead of everything happening immediately, there should be like a 2-year time gap
Which would make
between the
sense.
first and second Dare Live tournament. So altogether, there should be like 2 Dare Live tournaments
Hmm.
because that gives us enough time to really get to know the characters, and the world their life, how everyone interacts and shit. That's how I think they should do it. And in between that time frame, um, let's see what they do with Helena. That's Helena's pretty much left in the dark about everything, and let's see. Instead of instead of Christie outright killing Helena's mother, there should be some event where Rhino actually survives, but isn't completely fricasseed like in the original timeline.
Hmm.
She
Why do you
barely
think?
he barely makes it out of he makes it out alive, but that causes the domino effect, which makes Christie's attempt at assassinating Helena's mother ineffective. And I think the way that happens is that Nico travels back in time because the whole Project Maria thing went completely bad, nearly destroyed the entire planet, and as a precaution, she made a time machine to set to prevent that from happening.
So basically, make Nico Dead or Alive's equivalent of Liu Kang.
Or Raiden if we want to get technical.
Good point, but I just was going off the fact that Liu Kang's now the fire god and
The
has
current,
his own.
yeah,
Yeah, I
because
haven't
if Nico was able to make capable of making a dimensional portal, who's to say she hasn't made a time machine on her spare time?
probably just a fun Sunday project for her.
Yeah,
Uh, it would be really interesting to see where they go with like all of the characters in the reboot when that happens, which I think it's going to happen really soon.
yeah.
We've discussed
I
that
think
before, but
the ones that really need expansion are on Damon, Leon, and Zach. The relationship between those three, as well as the whole how the whole thing between Lei Feng and Jan Li started. Little known fact: this whole thing between them started when they were 13 and 12 respectively.
didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
Lei Fei was getting roughed up by a bunch of bullies. Jan Li came to her rescue, and Lei Fei didn't like that because she thought she could handle them just fine. And ever since then, she's been wanting to get back at him.
Hmm.
And the first chance he got, the first chance she found out that he was attending the Dare Life tournament, she went there specifically to get back at him.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this whole thing between those two was basically for Lei Feng to prove that she can take care of herself, but she took it too far, and now it's become this whole will they won't
Meme.
they shit.
Yep.
I was like, yeah. Instead of doing that for the reboot, they should just they should probably set up that whole shit during that 2 year time gap and work together to stop the child trafficking ring made by the Triad there. The Triad is like the equivalent of the Italian mafia or the Japanese yakuza and all that.
Okay.
And
Something that
another
I
way they can expand on that is by threatening to hold their granddaughter ransom, um, so they can do what they want, and
wait, who's
Genfu
wait,
gets involved.
wait, whose granddaughter? Sorry.
Genfu's.
Okay. Sorry, you'd cut out, so that's why I
Sorry,
asked you to
my I
repeat.
guess I was too far from my mic.
Nah, it's fine. Just I wanted to clarify because yeah.
Yeah. But during that 2 year time gap, people are gonna want to know what the hell, what else could they do on their spare time besides all this shit? And my answer to that is that Nico secretly funds an underground tournament where some people get in there, but the whole purpose of her trying to gather all those people there was to bring damn it. I mentioned in a video about the Dare Live reboot, but I forgot exactly what I said.
It's fine. No worries. If you can remember, just mention it. If not, no worries. People
Yeah.
can probably find that video on your
Basically,
channel.
everything was going to lead into um Iagaki's original plans for Dare Live 5 to have Miyako killed off by Mayane, one of the Mugen Tenshin, who was well after Victor Donovan was supposedly after Victor Donovan's plans were thwarted. This caused a chain reaction to make Doha Japan attack the Mugen Tenshin village directly, and as a result, Miyako was killed, and that would cause Kokoro to have a more prominent role in there, probably become manipulated by Victor Donovan to turn against her own sister. And yeah,
I really like that idea. Like that would actually give Kokoro a lot more agency, really.
yeah, instead of being the instead of being the not so bright person who doesn't notice an explosion and it happening right behind her in the middle of Tokyo.
Yeah. Like even
There's a
I'm kind
lot
of
of she has a lot of those airhead moments.
oblivious moments, I would say, yes.
Yeah,
And even I'm oblivious and I would be like, what the fuck if I heard an explosion behind me?
yeah.
Um okay, this is a question I wanted to ask like last time we did a podcast on the reboot.
Okay.
Who do you think the major characters should be for the reboot? We've already kind of covered Nico. Obviously, Kasumi and Ayane and Hayate are going to be major. But who else could you kind of see being a major player?
I really think it should be Hayate this time.
Hmm.
I really think it should be Hayate because that would be a nice segue into Ninja Gaiden 4. Um, where he would also where he would also get some prominent time as like a secondary character to Hayabusa. So
Yep.
yeah, Ninja Gaiden 4 should really just focus on Hayabusa and Hayate
Which I
this time
think could
around.
really be an interesting storyline. Like they could do a more intimate friendship focused storyline that
Oh,
also
and above all, we actually need to see we actually need to see what the Tengu realm looks like.
oh yeah, I would
That's
love
the
that.
one damn thing they never expanded upon. They had their opportunity when Neo Tengu was officially in a Dare Live 6 story, and instead of doing that, they decided to just let her. They decided to just let her participate in social experiment. Let a bunch of people participate in her social experiments.
See, Dead or Alive 6 storyline was so forgettable for me that I even forgot that
I
detail.
wouldn't say it's forgettable. I would say there was a lot of missed opportunities that they could have taken with certain characters. Like Diego, I could fix I could fix his backstory in 5 fucking minutes by just
See, I don't
saying that
see I
his father was an estranged was an estranged father who worked for Doatech, and that's why he hates rich people. That's why he hates rich people.
that literally would fix it because to be honest, I had completely forgotten what his backstory was because
Yeah, he
Dead or
basically
Dead or
he
Alive's
was participating in small time street fights to take care of his mom, but he was so proud of that he didn't want to participate in any tournaments run being funded by rich people. And his hatred for rich people didn't make sense. But if you take his estranged father into the equation, who could possibly be working for Doatech, that makes a lot more sense for his character.
it really does. I really found that Dead or Alive 6 and a lot of its story and characters were kind of nothing burgers at the end of the day.
Yeah, I feel like they put a lot of effort into Nico, but Diego was like an afterthought. Well,
Yep.
actually, yeah, Diego was an afterthought because he was literally created as a knee jerk reaction to appealing to a Western audience. That's literally the only reason he was created. It was a knee jerk reaction.
And it really feels like that. Um
I will say this: he is fun to play competitively, but that Evo build was just too much.
Expand on that. Because I
Okay,
wasn't.
yeah, it was his damage output. His damage output was the most busted thing about him. Once they toned that down, he became more tolerable. But in the early Evo build, yeah, almost everybody was picking Diego.
Ah,
That's why Sonic Fox that's why Sonic Fox pretty much gravitated to him during that whole exhibition.
mm,
Because the man loves his high tiers. I mean, the man loves his top tiers.
makes sense. I
Yeah,
personally don't really care about tiers at all. I just go with whatever character fits my playstyle, which is kind of bunga,
yeah.
as showcased by.
Diego's playstyle was on the bunk.
It was, but it was kind of. I didn't find him fast enough for my liking.
Oh,
That's that was my main thing. Because you've noticed I probably, and I do talk about this a lot, I like speed with my characters.
oh. Why did you
Uh,
pick Christie?
I don't really use Christie, actually.
Okay.
I mostly use Kokoro, Helena, and Hitomi because I find them speedy enough for my liking. Christie, I love her speed, but her strings just don't flow naturally for me. So
Let's see.
I'm sure if I spent more time in the lab with her, that I'd ultimately learn to love the character a lot, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
Dead or Alive 6 isn't a total loss because the whole idea of Victor Donovan bringing people back from the dead
oh,
was actually a good idea.
that was a
But
great idea.
yeah, it was a great idea because one, it makes Leon relevant to the story again. Because if he caught wind of that, if Bateman could use that to his advantage to force Leon to help him take down Victor Donovan by making a bargain with him, saying that if you help me out, I could get your lover back.
Which, honestly, they should have just included Leon as base roster because of the storyline.
Yeah.
It's like
I think
who
I my thought process was that since Leon wasn't popular enough, they weren't going to put him in there right away and just wait for a story expansion. But since the game didn't do well and they kept fucking up, they kept fucking up as far as season passes go. It fell through, and they
yeah.
weren't able to do it.
It's like Koei Tecmo were asleep at the wheel when they
Yeah,
were making Dead or Alive
yeah.
6.
Strong emphasis on Koei Tecmo, not Team Ninja. That's not their style.
Exactly. Um, but yeah, let's see. Uh, who are some characters that you really hope the reboot does not focus on?
That the reboot doesn't focus on.
Yeah,
Well, let's see. Um, get rid of Phase 4.
yeah. I don't think
Get rid
anyone
of
really
Phase
liked
4. Bring back Kasumi Alpha because Kasumi Alpha was basically Phase 4 anyway.
in a much nicer package.
I wouldn't say nicer, but it just
I was speaking aesthetically, but
yeah. But yeah, the whole Phase 4 thing, let's scrap that. Alpha 152, they should actually destroy this time. They should actually destroy Alpha 152 this time because even in Itagaki's original story, Alpha 152 still managed to get away.
mm,
So this time they should actually completely destroy it right from the get go. And that way they can focus on that way when they get to the part where Victor Donovan Victor Diamond finally makes a rejuvenation project, it'll lead to many possible outcomes, including the possibility of Lauren coming back from the dead. That's Leon's lover. The
I was gonna
possibility of
say,
Maria coming back from the dead, or the possibility of Bunkatsubo coming back from the dead.
which character? Sorry, your mic broke up again.
Bunkatsubo, the original Tengu, coming back from the
Okay, all right, yeah.
because yeah, if Bunkatsubo actually came back from the dead, he probably want to go back to the Tengu realm, amass kill off the current ruler of the Tengu realm, amass an army, and go back and try and stop kill Ryu Hayabusa at all costs because he's the one that killed him.
Which would really lead nicely
Yeah,
into
and
Ninja
that would
Gaiden.
segue into Ninja Gaiden 4, where it's basically a Tengu invasion on the human realm, and it's up to Hayabusa and Hayate to stop them, with a possible Neo Tengu as a side character, a la Rachel and Momiji.
I really hope that Momiji is base roster
Yeah,
going forward.
Rachel. Okay, yeah, that's the other thing. Rachel Momiji should have been in the main story from the get go, just because Neo Tengu was involved.
Exactly. I think that Neo Tengu needs to come back in the reboot because
Yeah,
there's
but this
just
time Neo Tengu will have a more significant role because she'll probably be the only character that notices there's a rift. There was a rift in time because she can sense the winds and all that. So
yep.
in a way, she could see the winds of time were completely fucked with, and she might warn Ryu Hayabusa of that and all that.
And
And
be the catalyst for the story in a sense.
yeah, that would kind of be a foreshadowing of Ninja Gaiden 4. That's
I
if they go the reboot route. I don't know what the fuck they're gonna do if they continue with Dead or Alive 7, then segue to Ninja Gaiden 4, or if they do the opposite.
I really don't think that they can keep the original Dead or Alive continuity anymore because even though it's never been story heavy, it's kind of a mess in terms of where they've left things. There's no clean point for them anymore to start the next storyline.
Yeah,
And
unless Project Maria turns out to be a complete global disaster that's 10 times worse than Alpha one
sorry,
five
can
two.
you repeat that? Your mic broke up again.
Yeah, unless Project Maria turns out to be a disaster project that's 10 times worse than Alpha 152. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. That's the
Maybe
only way I
they
could see them doing a reboot.
yeah. Um what if they wait, don't you mean if they continue the current storyline? Sorry, my
Yeah,
brain's
if they continue the current storyline and they rewrite Maria as this freak accident that completely obliterates everything on the planet. Yeah, that's the only way I can see it. That's the only excuse I can see for them rebooting the series.
if they do go off the old continuity, how do you feel they would do a sequel?
They would tie it to Neo somehow, and Ryu Hayabusa would be retconned as a descendant of Red Hayabusa, and they go through that lineage and how they were involved in the Neo timeline and all that. So there'll be elements of Neo and Wolong. Oh, Wolong has to have a tie into Genfu Janli and Lei Fang in some way.
It does?
Yeah, Wolong Final Dynasty, they have to find some way to tie it into their line as well. That would make their
Oh,
backstories a little more interesting.
oh, sorry. I had misinterpreted what you'd said. I thought that yeah, I thought that they'd actually like confirmed that it's got a tie-in.
Oh no. But I was saying if they rebooted,
Yeah.
they have to kind of tie they have to kind of make it would be nice if they connected it all in one shared universe.
I agree, because they could do so many different things with that.
Yeah. And
Um,
on top of that, they could also create new characters along the way.
for sure. Um, so what do you feel Dead or Alive Dimensions did really well? What do you feel it did really poorly in?
They did really well in expanding on Ayane's character, which was already good as it was, but now it's even better than ever. They did a better job explaining they did a better job explaining what was it? Hayabusa and how Hayabusa and Irene Liu and how they tie into the story. Because Irene was originally not even only mentioned vaguely as someone who ran a curio shop with Hayabusa, but they didn't really expand on it as her being a CIA agent and actually helping infiltrate the Tri Tower in Dare Live 4. So that explains why those that explains why those VTOLs were flying around the building.
Hmm.
I was like, what the hell was those? And then now they finally made sense of that. It was the CIA, and Irene was in one of them.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I like how they explained that part. I like how they also what else? Um they explained how they actually visually explained how how An was found by Hitomi and quickly learned karate and eventually came back in Daryl 2 once he got his memories back.
Hmm.
Um they let's see what else. Making sense out of Genra's defection to Doatek and how he was so easily kidnapped. I was like, yeah, this makes a lot more sense if he was willingly siding with Doatek. And
Yep.
it also makes more sense of how Bankatsubo was freed from the Miyama tree in the first place. Because that was very confusing in the original Dare Live 2. It was like it was like, oh, he got out because the Dare Live 2 tournament stirred up a lot of negative energies around the world. So we just accepted it as that. But this makes a lot more sense.
Definitely. And where do you feel the game absolutely just fell flat?
It fell flat because a lot of because it fell flat with all the side characters. They barely explained them at all. You have to go back to the original games, kind of and basically figure them out that way.
Which is where I found Dead or Alive Dimensions to be quite weak.
Yeah,
That was
when they said they
the
were only focusing on the ninjas, they weren't fucking around. They were just focusing on the ninjas. Everybody else was pretty much left by the wayside. As just hey, they were just people participating in the tournament when they were so much more than that.
hmm which really killed a lot of the plot, at least for me, because it's like, yeah, focusing
Yeah,
on the ninjas was
but then they don't they don't really get expanded upon until they're alive in 5 and 6 respectively.
hmm So we're close to running out of time again. Is there anything else you would like to say before we wrap up?
Um, Not really. I pretty much taught myself out.
Perfect. Where can people find you? And is there anything you'd like to plug along the way?
Um, well, I do some pretty good plugging as is. Awesmic one at my YouTube is Awesmic one, and my Twitter is Clay Osmic, and my Facebook is Osmic1.
Awesome. And my Twitter is Lever90TTV. I also stream on Twitch, which is Lever90. And Osmic will link to my YouTube channel, of course, since this is going to be going up on both of our channels, which is something kind of unique. Uh,
All right.
any,
Catch you later.
yep. Until next time, keep blazing that trail.